Have you ever used a pair of tweezers to get out like a super small splinter in your foot? Well, you're using your very fine motor skills to move those tweezers over to that teeny piece of wood in your foot, and then you're using your fine motor skills to pinch those tweezers just enough to grab that splinter, and then you're pulling it out gently. All of those movements include fine motor skills, where you're practicing with your fingers these teeny little motions in your hands that make up a bigger motion. So what can cause struggles with fine motor skills? How can we improve fine motor skills? Well, let's talk about it. Fine motor skills are those small movements that kids or adults or anyone makes with their hands and fingers. So pinching fingers together, putting up a number, writing with a pen or a pencil, using a pair of tweezers. These all involve fine motor skills. Now, fine motor skills are typically associated with creating better hand-eye coordination, being able to interact with surroundings better. What do you do if your child's struggling with fine motor skills? There's a lot of different activities that you can do. So let's break down some of these scenarios where fine motor skills come into play. Then we'll figure out what methods can we use to improve those fine motor skills for each one of those tasks. So let's talk about one of the most basic uses of fine motor skills, which is writing. When we have a pen or a pencil in our hand, we're using all these teeny little muscle fibers to create tiny movements with our fingers and hand in order to create words on the paper. Now, if you struggle with fine motor skills, your handwriting might not be great, or you might just be making a sloppy mess all over the place. So what can we do to improve those fine motor skills of your fingers for writing? Now, there's assistive tech that you can use. Maybe it's a pencil grip because the pen's too thin and you need a wider grip. Or maybe we can start playing with Play-Doh or using a pair of chopsticks and figuring out how to better fine-tune each of those movements for writing. Maybe your kid struggles eating food because they can't properly grip that utensil. Well, that's another fine motor skills issue. So maybe instead of doing it with food, you cut up a bunch of blocks of Play-Doh and you say, stab each block with the fork and then put it in the bucket over there. And now you're turning a practice into a game and you're working on those fine motor skills. So eventually, maybe they don't struggle to scoop up all that spaghetti with a fork. One of the most common issues with fine motor skills is actually getting dressed. We don't realize that buttoning buttons or tying a knot on your pants is a lot of these fine-tuned movements for fingers. So maybe you create a knot tying game on the side, or you create a sheet of fabric that has a bunch of buttons that you can snap together. Using repetitive practice of these skills in a low pressure or no pressure environment where it's not like, hey, if I don't get my pants on, I can't go to school. That's a great way to practice these fine motor skills. Turn it into a game, make it fun. If you do 10 buttons on a button sheet, then maybe you get a piece of candy or you get to watch your favorite TV show. So you've recognized some of these fine motor skills issues in your child and you're wondering, hey, what can I do at home? Well, the most important thing to do is actually play-based activities. Like I've discussed, turning these repetitive motions into a game where there's rewards is a great way to incentivize learning those fine motor skills in your fingers and hands. So if you want to fold up some papers and you have to make 12 triangles to get a cookie, that could be a great way to practice those fine motor skills. Now, with these play-based exercises or activities, it's important to be extremely consistent. Daily practice is the best way to get better at something. So carve out some time each day to come up with a game or two that revolves around those fine motor skills and create rewards around it too. We keep mentioning rewards because incentivizing progress is one of the best ways to make progress. When there's something good happening every time I get to play this game, well, I'm gonna wanna play that game more. And in turn, their fine motor skills will only get better. We've mentioned some assistive tech like pencil grips, but using that assistive technology or assistive devices is incredibly important for people who struggle with fine motor skills. Whether it's making text on the screen bigger so you can tap on things more accurately, or maybe it's just using that pencil grip that we talked about because the pen's too narrow to grab and really articulate where I want it to be. Remember, all of this takes practice and it takes time and consistency. It could take just a couple of months, it could take a couple of years for a child to develop these fine motor skills. But as long as you're practicing them and as long as you're making some progress, well, you're probably doing it right. If you're really struggling to make progress or you're noticing no progress in these fine motor skills, it might be good to talk to a professional, There's therapies out there that specialize in these motor skills. So if your kid's struggling with fine motor skills, don't be alarmed. However, there are a lot of different things that you can do at home, at school, or anywhere to practice these skills. The most important thing to remember is be consistent, make it fun, and keep progressing. As long as there's forward progress every day, you should celebrate that. And remember, sometimes you might go backwards a little bit, but that's okay too. Just keep trying. If you learned something today or enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It really helps us out. If you want more of these educational videos, press that subscribe button too. We release tons of these. If you want to learn more about the Goalie Daily Skills System, which is the best kids tablet on the market, head over to getgoalie.com. We also have a blog post that dives deeper into fine motor skills, linked in the description below. Thanks so much for stopping by today. Let us know if you have any questions in the comments below.
Did that help you understand the term? If yes, give us a thumbs up or subscribe below. If it didn't, then leave us a comment and tell us why. What are we missing? We always want to do better. This is a project by Goalie. Check us out at getgoalie.com.